All right, welcome back. Um, we're going to do session 2 now of our Sunday School Leadership Training, and this will be my second time to record this because somehow I lost this file. The good news for me is that this was the shortest of the 3 sessions, and that's also good news for you, I'm sure. But we're going to talk about long-term strategies for discipleship in this session. So I believe that there is a failure if we approach doing uh, our responsibility as a teacher in the wrong way. There's a failure, not out of malice or ill intent, but a failure if we approach that teaching event in the wrong way. And we're talking about method more than our spirit or our attitude. Of course, our attitude matters, our spirit matters. We want to do things for the right reason in the right way. But this is more of saying, hey, what's the best approach to make our class everything that it could be? The failure that I see in our teaching method could be if we take our class as a teaching event. Now, specifically, let me put it in this kind of terms. I think you should see yourself more as a facilitator for the class rather than the professor of the class. So what does a professor do? Well, the professor is the expert, the doctor, the one that's got the PhD, who has done all the research and then comes in and delivers that research to those that need to learn, that need his expertise in that area. Well, if we could be honest, none of us are experts. When it comes to the Bible, when it comes to the things of God, we all are on the journey of learning. So I think it's important for us, and even more effective for us, to see ourselves as facilitators rather than professors. Now, let me give you an argument why. First is this: you may not be that good of a teacher. Um, I may not be that good of a teacher. You and I are limited. I'm not saying that to insult you. I'm just saying most people that I've talked to would admit, at first at least, I probably wasn't the right person for y'all to select and ask to be a Sunday school teacher, right? So that's okay, because what is that old phrase we go back to? God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And so we're not, when that committee gets together and prays about who's supposed to lead this class, we're not saying this is the best teacher we could find. We're saying this is the person who we believe could facilitate that class in a positive way that will make a difference. So you may just not be that good of a teacher, but then there's also this danger, and I've seen this several times, and I've been tempted to do it myself. But a lot of times when we don't think we're that creative, and maybe we don't take the time or don't have the time to put into the study portion of preparing for a class that we should, it's easy for us, if we're not careful, to just read the lesson. Now, the danger of just reading the lesson is a couple of things. First, it's not that interesting. It's not interesting to me to listen to you read a lesson. Another thing is, couldn't I just do that at home? If you're trying to make that switch, let's say you're a young couple and you're trying to say, okay, we know we got to get the kids in Sunday school. We know we got to get up there. What motivation would be there if all you're going to do is read something that I could have read at home by myself, right? And thirdly, and probably most importantly, it's not the best way to learn. For you to just read me information, I'm going to retain way less information there than if I had discovered that myself. So I want to talk about the effectiveness of the discovery method. Now, this is not extensive. Obviously, this is a real method of teaching, and I'm only going to give you just a glimpse at what it is. But think about Jesus for a second. Jesus told stories and created environments where people wanted to ask questions. In fact, a lot of what Jesus did himself was he asked questions. And so there was this back and forth, this discussion, this kind of discovery of, in fact, Jesus, he was kind of well known for not giving the answer to the question, right? What did the man came to Jesus and said, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said, "Why do you call me good?" And he takes him down this path he totally didn't see coming, where he asks a question, he answers the question with a question. And so asking good questions is an important skill that you can develop, right? So it encourages people to retain that information if they discover it themselves. And here's just a fact of life: people love to share their opinion, even little people. Youth, I've found over and over how much more effective it is when they get to kind of give their 2 cents in a lesson. And so this is a small group. It's a small Sunday school class for a reason. We want interaction. So your job really becomes, as a facilitator, then not to teach. I mean, there is a teaching element, but not primarily to teach as it is to lead that group discussion. Now, that's going to take some skill. In fact, you might argue that that's harder than just teaching, because it's definitely easier to just read out of the book, but it kind of insults my intelligence. I probably, if I'm doing it right, I've already read my lesson at home and I'm supposed to come prepared to talk about it. So asking good questions. Now, our books do a good job. They give us some questions that you can use and utilize. And people, if they've studied their lesson, are already supposed to have written in some things. But I would say as you talk through the passage, verse, maybe not verse by verse, but chunk of verse, how it lays it out there by verse, however you do that, write down good questions. Okay, if I want to, in Ecclesiastes, teach that there's a time for everything, I might write in a question about how well do you use your time, or what's the biggest challenge in time management in your life. So we're going to talk about this theme, and I want to direct your mind, and I want to get you talking in the group. Okay? And so people love to share their opinion. Give them that opportunity. And probably one of the hardest things that you're going to have to learn to do is to bring that conversation back. It's always, it's typically going to drift off to politics or the weather or a certain thing at work or coronavirus or whatever. And all of those things, they have their place to be in a discussion. But a skill that you need to develop as a teacher is how to then bring them back to that conversation and our lesson. So part of that is teaching, part of that is learning to ask really good questions. That creates community. And that's what I want to talk about in this second half of this session, is the effectiveness of community. So what was our title? Long-term strategies for discipleship. We talked about discovery, but we also need to add in this element of community. So yes, it's important that we are learning and growing, and information is coming in, but almost just as important is the fact that people need in their life to be a part of something bigger than themselves. People know we are created for community. That's why family is so important. That's why loneliness is so dangerous to people, because we need one another. And so people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. You need to teach your class then to respond as a community. Let's say to the emergencies of life. These give us opportunities to share in little ways and make little touches that really make a long-term difference. So think through some of those for me. Some of these have happened in your classes. Somebody's sick. So you as a class organize a food drop. We're all going to take dinner. We're going to take, we're going to take a meal each and cover them for the week. Somebody has a loss. Maybe a parent dies. We organize some flowers to come from our class to them. Maybe a child had surgery. So we take a simple coloring book and some crayons, I still remember Janet McWilliams when I had strep throat as a third grader. I was in the hospital for a few days, and she brought a coloring book with Ninja Turtles on it. I thought it was so cool, and I remember that stuck out to me as a third grader. Why? Because it was such a big deal to go pick up an expensive coloring book. No, it wasn't. It was a thoughtful gift that I thought, wow, somebody really cares about me. It stuck with me. And it makes us realize how important those small little touches are that show the thoughtfulness. And those are the things that mean the most. The other day, it was Cheyenne's birthday. And yes, I did get her gifts, okay? So and on time, okay? But one of the funny things is I got her a couple of things, but one of the funny things that happened for me was what she really responded to. So she was opening up a few gifts, and she got to this one little package where it was just a car charger. She has a car charger, but it's kind of too long and bulky. It wasn't made for that, and so she had mentioned, man, I really would like just a smaller charger that wouldn't get in the way. And she hadn't mentioned that in a long time, but I went and I got one, and it was part of her birthday gift. Well, that's the gift that she said, I can't believe this, and she just kept going on and on about it. I was like, come on, it's a $5 charger. You got other things. I thought she would really like these other things, but she said, no, it's that you remembered. It's that I didn't mention that. I haven't talked about that recently, but you remembered it. So see, the little touches show that somebody thought, that somebody cared. And so it's those little things that you do that build the community. So be intentional about that. Side note here for just a moment. While this can be organized, and that's not a bad thing, we have to make sure that it's genuine. It can be organized, but if it feels contrived or it feels just uh, like, well, that's what's expected, or listen, we have to be genuine in our care and our effort. Fake effort and fake motivation, people can see that. They can generally tell when we're just doing something because we feel like we need to or have to or are supposed to. And so make sure that that comes from a heart that is genuinely cared to build that community. And so, just as a reminder, as we finish up this section, part of discipleship is living alongside other people. The disciples did it. They didn't just listen to Jesus on an audiobook. They didn't just get the manuscripts of his sermons. No, they ate together, they walked together, they laughed together. Their life was spent around the Savior. And there was a community. And that's why it was an effective long-term discipleship strategy. And so I want to encourage you. Now, as you pause for just a moment, I want you to take out that notepad and that pen and write down some ways that you as a class could reach in and be effective in those little touches, those little moments. I'm not talking about expensive things. I'm talking about how can we make sure that we're creating a community that is effective and is genuine in our heart to reach out. And then also maybe take a second to ask this question. Do I see myself more as a teacher, a professor, or a facilitator? And what are some ways that I can look at my own teaching method and say, how could I better communicate through engaging discovery method? And so take a second, think through that, and I'll see you back for session 3.